Corey Erdman and Morgan Campbell here with you. This week, Premier Boxing Champions makes its debut on Fox. Not Fox Sports 1, not your Fox Sports regional affiliate, but actual real live Fox as Danny Garcia takes on Robert Guerrero in the main event in a welterweight battle in a fight that we presume is going to be exciting, whatever the result is. But I think that this one boils down to, what does Robert Guerrero actually have left in the tank? Because going back to the Yoshihiro Kamagai fight, it looked like there was some serious erosion in Robert Guerrero as a fighter. And then very noticeably when he fought Aaron Martinez and was briefly knocked out before he miraculously woke up, there was some real noticeable erosion on the part of Robert Guerrero. A lot of question marks surrounding him heading into this fight.
His skills may be declining, but his style is still in place. As we've discussed before, he's an in-your-face fighter, which means his fights, for whatever they are not, are always exciting. And Robert Guerrero's role in this fight isn't necessarily to present a credible challenge to the WBC world welterweight title. His role is just to have some credentials and an exciting style. Because the thing about Robert Guerrero is that he only has 3 losses, and that one of those losses is to Floyd Mayweather. So now when you sell this fight to a mainstream audience, because you have a much broader audience for this fight than you normally have for these PBC fights in the Fox family. So you have a bunch of people that don't really follow boxing, don't necessarily follow boxing, but they know the name Floyd Mayweather. There's no shame in having lost to Floyd Mayweather. So when you sell Robert Guerrero as this guy who fought Floyd Mayweather, he's elite by association. You're going to tune in and watch this fight. He has a fan-friendly style. Now, if he loses to Garcia, which I think he's supposed to, it doesn't really matter, because what you have is a broader audience than you're used to having, who tune in to see this fight that's exciting, and that's what you want. And you want that a lot more probably than Robert Guerrero coming in looking sharp and beating Danny Garcia.
Oh, definitely. And well, speaking of selling fighters, there has been a little bit of difficulty on the other side of this fight when it comes to marketing Danny Garcia. Not that his numbers have been bad, not that he's been a terrible box office attraction or anything like that, but I think that Danny Garcia himself and the people who promote Danny Garcia have had difficulty getting people to like Danny Garcia. And you do have to wonder why, because it's not like he's a boring fighter in the ring, but you'd have to think that it just stems from the fact that he did get to fight an old Eric Morales twice. Got that Rod Salka fight that nobody was particularly...
Old Eric Morales, who had failed a drug test before the fight, right? And
which isn't Danny Garcia's fault.
Right, but then they backdated the paperwork and said, here, old Eric Morales, go
step
fight.
in the ring anyway. The Rod Salka fight, which again, he didn't ask for, finished that one very quickly. And then the debatable win over Mauricio Herrera. Again, all of these things aren't Danny Garcia's fault. For what he's done in the ring, he's done enough to deserve some sort of fanfare. He seems like a pretty pleasant guy. He wears masks to the ring. He's fairly charismatic, but people for some reason just do not get behind him.
But the beauty here, if you're Fox, if you're Premier Boxing Champions, is that all that resentment directed towards Danny Garcia comes from a hardcore boxing fans who, again, are not your audience here, or not your main audience here, or not the majority of your audience here. So hardcore boxing fans say, yeah, you beat up old Eric Morales, you didn't deserve the win against Herrera, you might not have deserved the win against Lamont Peterson in the spring, but mainstream sports fans kind of parachuting into boxing, they don't really know any of that and don't recognize any of that. What they see is 31-0. What they see is an undefeated record. What they see is a win over Amir Khan, whom they might have heard of. Right? So now you have a guy with an undefeated record fighting the guy who's elite by association because he fought Floyd Mayweather fairly recently. So to the mainstream sports audience who doesn't follow a whole lot of boxing, this is a super high stakes affair, regardless of the decline in Robert Guerrero's skills and regardless of the resentment that hardcore fans might hold towards Danny Garcia. So to them, to the mainstream, this is a big deal. And then when the fight turns out to be exciting, which it should based on the styles of the guys in it, they're happy because they don't know any of this other stuff.
Well, and the stakes in the broader sense, and this might be more for the hardcore boxing audience who does follow the sport and knows and would know what's going on in and around that weight class at 147, the stakes run parallel with what's going on with Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, who reportedly will fight in March on Showtime. We don't have a venue for that quite yet, but you would presume that if not immediately, that the storyline, the script is for Danny Garcia to fight either or both of those guys in that particular fight, and you have to salivate at the possibility of any of those matchups at this point.
Well, right, and again, if he beats Guerrero, what he has is, we talk about this all the time, the common opponent with Thurman, and you know, Thurman isn't guaranteed to beat Porter, but let's just say he does. What they have is a common opponent, and always when you market fights, if Garcia manages to knock out Guerrero, if he manages to stop Guerrero, then they can say, well, he has the advantage going into this fight. Look at this common opponent. Mayweather couldn't stop Guerrero. Thurman couldn't stop Guerrero, but here we have Danny Garcia. Now, that's not guaranteed because we don't know how Danny Garcia's power is going to translate to the welterweight class and against a tough welterweight, too. But yes, what we have, as we've talked about too with the heavyweight division, what we have with the retirement of Floyd Mayweather, we don't like the splintering of titles per se, but what we do like is the opening up of possibilities because guys now fight each other instead of just trying to get in line to get the one payday.
Do you want to mention quickly the pretty good undercard that will happen beneath this fight as well? Sammy Vasquez taking on Aaron Martinez. That should be an exciting fight. I know they're not particularly big names, but both guys are definitely going to bring it. But also, since the heavyweight division is in vogue again,
yes.
Our man Dominic Breazeale taking on the toughest test in his career thus far in Amir Mansour. Morgan, is this possibly the time when the Dominic Breazeale bubble is finally burst? Because we've been dangerously close a couple of times, and Mansour seems like the kind of guy who could do it.
Listen, it almost burst when he fought, what was the guy's name?
Fred Cassie.
Fred Cassie. I thought the bubble burst that night. I had Cassie winning that fight. What Breazeale has to hope for is that his skills are sharpening more quickly than Mansour's skills are declining, but Mansour is not a young guy, right? If a fighter can be a young 43, then Mansour is a young 43, but at a certain point, 43 is 43. So the bubble might not burst this time, but Breazeale has some big improvements to make if he really wants to be taken seriously in the way that even Charles Martin is.
Well, and in terms of initial pedigree, Dominic Breazeale learned to box after he finished his football career. Yep. Amir Mansour learned to box in prison. So at least they started on an equal playing field. All right, that's all for us. We hope for an exciting card this weekend on Fox. More Fight News Now continues.